And Senator Banks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Driscoll, welcome and congratulations on your important nomination. You bring a unique background in business and private equity, and one of the biggest things that we have to accomplish in this moment is innovation at the Pentagon. I wonder if you could talk about your background and how that uniquely helps you help us create better innovation in our national security.
Senator, after attending law school on the GI Bill, I was fortunate enough to spend time as a CEO at a venture capital firm where for a couple of years I got to spend time working with and learning and seeing how some of our country's most amazing innovators are building their businesses. And some of the lessons that they have learned in the private space over the last 10 to 20 years, I think are ripe for transferal to the United States Army. Creating a feedback loop and a learning loop that gets lessons learned from the actual soldiers in the field back into the manufacturers or the software developers occurs in the private space frequently. I think it is a little bit less frequent in the Army. There are examples of this, I think, working wonderfully in the Army, like the IVAS system, as I understand it, is kind of a shining beacon of effective development. And so what I'm hoping to do, if confirmed, Senator, is work with this committee and the Army's existing leaders to figure out where can we tighten the innovation loop and get the learnings from the field and the learnings from our friends in places like Ukraine. I mean, that battlefield is ripe with lessons around drones and cyber, and how can we get those lessons into our procurement processes and on the manufacturing floor as quickly as possible.
Part of working in venture capital and when it comes to innovation is thinking outside the box, and we have a major crisis in the military right now, especially with the United States Army, with a historic recruitment crisis. I know you've already covered this, but give us more specific ideas that we can use new technologies and innovation to recruit the best and brightest of the next generation to serve our country.
I think if you look, Senator, there are a lot of tools used by some of our larger corporations in the country to recruit at scale, but give a very individualized and personalized experience. What I have heard with the recruiting process is they are looking at all sorts of different ways of creating a specialty where a recruiter, if you're an incredible recruiter, perhaps that can be how you serve your country for your entire time in uniform. Things like that mimic the expertise that can be developed in the private sector, applying those best lessons and processes to the Army, I think will continue to unlock what has seemed to be, no doubt a lot because of the work of this committee, a forward momentum in recruiting in the Army right now.
Secretary Hegseth has talked at length about restoring the meritocracy to our military. And I happen to believe that the recruitment crisis facing the military today has a lot to do with taking merit out of the military. Young men and women say, why would I join the military if it's no longer the great meritocracy that it used to be? So I think restoring that would be important to the Army. And on that note, last year the Army argued that affirmative action at our service academies was, quote, critical to mission success and national security. And when I asked the Secretary of the Army, Wormuth, last year in the House Armed Services Committee, where I previously served, whether the Supreme Court harmed national security when it banned affirmative action at schools with ROTC programs, she admitted she was, quote, a little puzzled why affirmative action at West Point wasn't also banned. Mr. Driscoll, do racial admission preferences at service academies like West Point help our national security?
I don't believe so.
And you would support efforts, as Secretary Hegseth has talked about as well, to end affirmative action at our service academies, I think especially at West Point? I
think one of the most amazing parts of my time in service is the Army, in my experience, was an incredible meritocracy. I can't remember a single time being in where anyone thought that the system was against them. And when I have told our kids, Daniel and Lila, about this, what we hope that they will do after high school, I have told my daughter it would be the proudest day of my life, and I don't think she understands the nuance of what I'm saying, to pin a Ranger tab on her if she can complete Ranger School, with the incredibly difficult standards being the exact same as when I went through. And so I think that those standards and excellence that the Secretary of Defense has talked about are important. It's what makes our Army great. It's what's made our Army the greatest land fighting force in the last 249 years on the planet Earth, and I hope that we're able to hold those standards going forward.
You bring a lot to the table. I'm excited to work with you to make the Army as strong as it can possibly be, fix the recruitment crisis, and modernize the Army for the future. Thank you for agreeing to serve our country. You have my full support.
Thank you very much, Senator Banks.